All right, hi, I'm Matous, I'm Azure MVP.
I'm Alexander, I'm a data platform MVP.
And I'm Simon, an enterprise mobility MVP.
So we were just talking about the future of tech and
And the latest trends.
the latest trends, and we kind of bumped into a slight issue with that, considering the fact that training and learning, or actually just keeping up with this
Continuous learning.
Yeah.
continuous learning and keeping up with
How do you
with this stuff.
how do you keep training not just the others, not just your customers? How do you develop that knowledge that goes on into the trends?
I think it's about, first and foremost, being interested in what you do. I think that's more and more important moving forward, to be honest, that you need to be passionate about what you do in IT. It doesn't matter if you're passionate about actually managing something or developing something, but you need to feel something for what you want to achieve. You can feel that on a personal level or on a basically a work level. To be proud of what you do, that's, to me, that's important. It's way easier to learn something that you enjoy doing.
See that I kind of understand that because that's how I have it, but how is it with like people that you guys working with? Like, is it? It's not always the case, right? It's like people still gonna go to their office and gonna do like day-to-day job, but what I'm kind of almost fighting with is that learning curve that somehow stops because people just refuse to learn, just refuse to take a look into the new stuff.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and I think this might be a simplification, but I think it all comes down to why.
Yeah.
Why should I learn this? If I cannot connect anything to me, I don't have any point in learning it, so I'm not interested in learning whatever it might be. But if you can find this kernel of connection between your client, whomever you're trying to teach the stuff, that can be the way forward.
Like, how do I make my life or my organization's life better?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
Yep.
something
Yep.
like that, right?
How do you make a difference?
Yeah.
I think that's something everyone
Well,
asks themselves.
difference, yes and no. In the end, we're lazy, right?
Yep.
I can just speak for myself.
Yeah,
I know I'm
definitely.
very lazy. And if I can be shown a way to do something quicker or better, I don't have to put in as much effort. I'm all with that. And I'm good with learning something new in order to optimize the flow.
Yeah.
But-
So maybe that's the trick. Like, find the laziest person
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Pretty much
right?
show
Yeah,
that
yeah.
if
Right.
that guy can do it, we're good.
Yeah. And then when it comes down to the actual training, both myself and Alexander are Microsoft certified trainers. And I think that if you look at how Microsoft has changed their official course material, I think that says a lot about what we should and how we should learn in general. So find things you are actually going to do rather than learning a product inside out, which we used to do in the courses. So you learned Windows Server, everything from
Right, yeah.
A to Z.
Yep.
Now it's more about, okay, this is what I'm actually supposed to be doing. This is something I can relate to and make it micro learnings. So if I'm about to, as an example, manage multi-factor authentication, that's something I focus on for a day or an hour or 5 minutes, but learn that specific thing, specific topic, and then move on and work with that for a while and then
Yeah.
find something else.
I would say it's got to be hands-on, right? Because
Yeah.
that's basically how I prepare learning materials. Like when I work with my customers, I try things to be hands-on. I try to be that as an experience because they probably seen like thousands of slides on the topic already. I'm not bringing anything new there, but they need to experience that. So it doesn't make any sense to, for example, learn about my favorite topic like infrastructure as code, right? Unless you get your hands on the keyboard and actually start doing that. Before that, you can see thousands of examples and you can visit thousands of repositories and try to even copy paste it, but that's not it. You need to write it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's when you put your hands on the keyboard, that's where you can find the why that is relevant to you, in my opinion.
And I think another trend that we will be discussing soon, I guess, is about also when you get the hands-on experience, you also make mistakes. You also fail, you also break stuff. And that's also a very important part of learning. If you go through learning anything without failing, you won't be able to solve things when they actually break. So it's better to try something, be hands-on, push the technology to its limits, and realize that, yeah, most things did work, and the things that didn't, I learned something from.
And that's also I would say that's the most fun part, really.
Yep.
Push the stuff to the limits, like
Yep.
see what it can do under pressure, right?
I agree completely, and I think the three of us are more than happy to try to break things just
Yep.
to see
Yeah.
where the boundaries are. Most people are probably not
Yeah, that's the
thinking
point.
that way.
Yep.
And I was thinking a few of the training providers has been doing a specific thing for quite some time. The highest level certifications are all based on a troubleshooting scenario,
Yep.
where you get presented with something in a way that it should be, and then you have some kind of environment and basically just get the instructions, fix this. You have X amount of hours, fix it. And that's something that drives the three of us. And I think that is something that might drive others kind of insane. So maybe not the best way of teaching beginners, but it's a very good way of getting a holistic view on the whole thing. Because everything is connected,
Yep.
always. So having this kind of base knowledge and realization that everything evolves, everything changes so quickly, where are we going with trends? I mean, we can talk for days about cool new trends, but what's actually happening today, tomorrow, and next week?
I think the entire as a service movement, you can call it cloud, you can call it whatever you like, is something that really creates a lot of technology trends, but they all drive the need for a new way to work. So it's not just about what you learn from a technology perspective, it's also how you implement, manage, and optimize your infrastructure, your workplace, your data. And that's really the trend I'm seeing now, that my customers implement all of these cool features, all of these cool services, regardless of which technology you choose. And they need to change how they work with it on a operational and organizational level to be able to keep up with everything.
That kind of goes back to into like the driven by laziness kind of topic, right? Basically, I want that thing as a service. I want somebody to do it for me. And it doesn't matter if it's from data side of things or from like workplace side of things or from like cloud side of things in general. But it's something that matters to me. Time to market matters to me.
Yes.
And that's why I cannot make it myself.
No, exactly. Yep.
And because you're deepest into the whole infrastructure part of Azure and cloud in general, and where do you see we are moving with regards to infrastructure as a service? Because it's kind of weird to have a server as a service.
Yeah, right.
But it still is absolutely fundamental to pretty much everything we do on top of your stuff.
I would say it kind of differs in terms of layers, right? So when I pick services, I can say that maybe I want just the data part. That's the one I'm interested in. Maybe I want just like the application to run, and I want the data part to be okay.
Yep.
If I'm into that, then yes, I pick that layer. But maybe I go deeper from whatever reasons. Maybe I have some dependencies from the past. Maybe I have some other consequences. Maybe I just develop on deeper stack. Maybe I have actual hardware dependencies or actual services dependencies. So I pick another layer from the bottom, right? So that's where I end up with for example, containers and things like that. If I'm really deeper than that, even like I say, like I can't let someone manage my container orchestration because I need to monitor that. I have something custom on that level. I go even deeper, and back to your question with the infrastructure, plenty of people actually ask me, like, is there going to be infrastructure as a service in the future?
Yeah.
Does it even make sense? Well, I know plenty of people who actually develop stuff on top of custom hardware and on top of like hardware profiles. The people who actually need like dedicated graphics chip, for example, right? So virtualization is already abstraction for them, and they need to work with that. Like in most cases they can. So they're gonna develop that stuff continuously. But I think it's pretty much decision on which layer of these you are comfortable with and where you need to end up.
So would you say that a trend or something that's perhaps is a maturity question? So if we start off with where we started with cloud, so we had infrastructure as a service, we had platform as a service and software as a service. Would you say that we now have more layers that you need to choose from and design with in mind?
Yeah, definitely. Because like for example, even when you see how, for example, Microsoft does stuff, right? They don't do any specific magic in terms of providing you services. They don't do any specific magic that you cannot achieve yourself. If you, even from a public cloud perspective, if you pick proper components and if you automate things enough on top of them, you can achieve the same level of automation. They don't keep anything away from you. So the question really is how much you want to do yourself. And the question should be that much driven of how much you want to do, but how much is actually beneficial for you to do yourself. So yes, you can run microservices in things like Service Fabric or Kubernetes and things like that, but you can also run the whole infrastructure on VMs and VM scale sets, scaling them up and take care of the scaling part, taking decision when to scale and how to scale, and automating things during basic operation procedures and automating things how to deliver your application and your data. If you're not interested into that, or if the time to market is more important to you, and you don't have those dependencies and you don't have those requirements, then good for you. You can go upper in the stack. You can end up in something more platform or even software as a service level, right?
And that kind of brings the whole discussion back to the why. Because the public cloud or private cloud or clouds in general, they're basically a smorgasbord. There are so many things to choose from. How do you know what to choose? From all the things you just said, how do you know which one to choose? You need to know the why. What are you trying to achieve?
Exactly. And that should be like universal question for everything.
Definitely.
And I think that's a trend in itself that if we look just a few years back and had a why, it was usually about efficiency. It was about saving resources. But we are now getting to a why that's way more business focused. So what do we want to achieve with every single design decision we make? How will that impact our users, our customers, our partners, whatever it may be? So the why has become way more detailed.
It's become more complex.
Yeah, more complex as well.
Because like when you take like the beginnings from your area, right? Basically like the from everything around user facing. That's quite easier, right? Because I would say that nobody answers the why question better than the end user who doesn't have any background in the technology whatsoever.
I agree completely.
And basically for those it's quite easy. You basically you do like a user acceptance test. How they behave. That's what drives the value proposition, right? But it gets more complex when you move deeper in the stack, pretty much.
But I think that's also vital for people that work with the things you do, the things that may not be user-facing, but to still have a why that a user could understand. So as an example, we are implementing a new storage solution. Why are we doing that? Probably because a certain application will run better. And that's a why in itself. We need to have this application to run better, to perform better.
But then you can ask why do we need that?
Absolutely.
And then we're even farther up.
And that could be something like, currently our staff are struggling. The workflow gets interrupted by the high load times for this particular application. So I think that's vital as well. Regardless of where you are in the infrastructure or in IT, find a why that's applicable to the actual user of something. And if you can't find the why on that level, you probably shouldn't do it.
That's a very top tip right there. If you cannot find the why, stop. Take a step back and see, why can't I find the why? Because what happens when you go as far up enough to the why is when you start to go down again. Take your example, for instance. Maybe we don't need a faster server or faster storage solution. We need a new way of doing things. It still satisfies the why, but it is not where we came from when we formulated the why.
Yeah.
And it kind of segues into my field, because I do data, and most people have a lot of data, but most people don't know what data is. If I was to say data quality, what does that mean? And then we have the whole citizen data scientist thing. That means pretty much we have a ton of data, let people go fish. You don't know what you're looking for. But if you know why you're looking for it, you might actually find it in the data. If you don't know why you're looking for it, you can find a lot of stuff that is not relevant, and you can get lost in all the data. Because it's pretty easy to get lost in my data.
And data is something that spans all our areas.
Yes.
Because we need infrastructure to manage it, we need someone to take care of it, curate it, and make it available to users. And I usually, from a workplace perspective, ending up gathering data.
Oh yes,
so
a lot of data.
When we are implementing workplaces today, a vital part of that is IoT. But IoT in terms of something that actually will be beneficial for the workplace, and that will gather data for us. So everything we implement, it can honestly be a share with a sensor. How much is this share used, and in what way? That gathers data that we then can use to make good decisions on which new share to buy. So even things like furniture, even things like the actual design of a building is now turning into IT.
But it supplies the why decision.
Yes, absolutely.
And that goes kind of back into the learning. Like that should be the answer for the learning stuff as well, because you should ask yourself the question, why do I need this skill, and why should I make a better decision on that particular technology? Like,
absolutely.
if I would turn it the other way around, I would say there's not so many professions where you don't have to learn, right? So the why question should be pretty much self-answering, right? So
that's an interesting topic in itself, because just go back to our parents. My father spent 30 odd years in the same workplace, kind of sort of doing the same thing, but learning, it was nowhere near the innovative speed that I should say, suffer from. Because if we turn our back, or God forbid, if we go on vacation, when we come back,
everything changed.
Everything changes.
Well, that kind of goes with the way how agile things are developed and how they come to market, right? But it's still the same field. You don't getting the knowledge in completely new area. It's still your field. It's still your expertise. You can still rely on your background, right? So I would say that it's the like the new skills you're gaining, or it's like a new areas that you getting into. But it's a set of tasks that's changing ahead of you.
That's a very good point.
So, like 15 years ago, we would probably got some knowledge about floppy disks and how to transform it into CDs and stuff like that, right? But you don't see us running around with the floppies or CDs today, but we still have our jobs. We don't have to worry about that. We just have a different set of tasks.
And that also comes back to the whole training, because the key in training today is more role-based or module-based, i.e. circled around a set of tasks. So the tasks and the why, those two are the absolute key, I think.
And then another trend that we are seeing now, and that actually gets into every single thing as well, security. And but also applied security, and security that may not be as visible to or impactful on the user. So when I'm out talking about workplace and workplace security, I usually twist it to what's in it for the user. Because if we go out and tell any person we work with that you're now getting a new security solution, they will ask why. To make things more secure.
And you better have a good answer to that question.
And to make things more secure isn't a good answer.
But it's usually easier to answer that one when something already happened in the office, right?
But I usually twist that to see what will this security solution enable a user to do. And that could be easy things like we want to securely share data. Yeah, so we implement a solution that will secure data, and what we pitch to the users would then be, this will enable you to share data that you previously couldn't share. And I think that security movement, driven by some unfortunate events that we get every single week, organizations that get hacked, that get data leaks, whatever it could be, that drives security on all layers, everywhere, but we still need to keep that focus on the why. And a why that is applicable again to the actual user.
Do you see the lack of trust in terms of like security as a provided one? Because suddenly you don't have people who don't manage the physical security, right? Somebody took their server room keys and they don't have them anymore, and this is all provided as a service.
Yep. That's a very good question. I think that's something that many organizations still struggles with, to get to that point and to realize that it's find someone to trust.
Yeah.
Because that will enable you to do security more efficient than you could ever do by yourself, probably.
Yeah. That was pretty much the beginning of the cloud era that I saw, right?
Yeah.
When people started to move the infrastructure pieces, suddenly they didn't have the control. And the main reason in 2012 why not to move to the cloud was security concern.
Yeah.
And what I always told them was like, that's not a security concern, you have a trust issues.
Yes.
Like, ironically, if we flip it and go to current year, one of the major reasons and one of the major migration triggers to public cloud environment is to achieve better security and compliance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because these organizations have to like achieve the compliance on their level and on their scale.
Yep.
And they have to, of course, apply it to their customers, so they give you the same kind of tooling.
Yep.
But I would say that like learning to trust is hard, but it's something that we eventually do anyway.
And you need to trust your cloud provider, regardless of who that may be.
Yeah.
Because if you don't trust your cloud provider, what can you then do?
Yeah, but it's something that you are eventually like end up with anyway. Like, for example, if Microsoft or others would really like to harm you or spy on you or whatever things like that, it's like usually the very paranoid thing to ask, right?
Yeah.
They could do it for years. Like, have you ever thought about like when you click the install updates on your Windows computer? Have you ever even like read the release notes for that?
Yep.
No, you don't. You just click it.
Yeah,
Because
you
that's
trust
what
them.
it does, right?
Yep.
Then you reboot and you're fine. And same way as you learn to trust that install update button, you just like need to learn the deploy the new solution button.
Yep.
Yep. And I'd like to add one specific word. You said people did not want to move to the cloud because they lost control. I'd say that it's perceived control. They still have the same control, or actually, as you put it, more control, more compliance. And it's more of a soft discussion than a hard discussion. Yep. It's all about people, making people trust other people.
But the same way how we discussed that you achieve things faster because they are more automated, same thing you have with control, right? With control, actually, like if I want to achieve control in the public cloud environment, I still do it faster.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I don't have to do through the physical pieces. So even if I would take it to extreme and I would decide to basically wrap it up and leave, I can still do it faster than the environment of my own.
Oh yeah, because you know where all the pieces are.
Yeah, and it's actually easier to map them as well, because even if somebody hacked into the on-prem environment, right? The first thing they did, even when you started your new job as administrator, the first thing you did was like getting the map to the cave.
Yeah,
you try to map the environment, and it's like a lot harder to do it on premises than in a public cloud environment where you basically do a couple of API calls, and you get the map of the cave. You know where the things are. You know how to move them, and it's easy to move them.
Yeah, and you don't get any surprises.
Yeah,
and that kind of ties back to when you have a server on-prem. If you make something more efficient, you maybe make something faster. but you don't change the footprint of the server. It's still there. It still produces the same amount of horsepower that it did yesterday.
Yeah.
But you might actually be able to squeeze some more stuff into it. Every second that you can save on something in the cloud equals money.
Yeah.
So you have a whole different value proposition for tuning and optimizing your workload in the cloud.
So when you work with, it's actually kind of nicely goes into the performance questions, really. Like when you work with data, that's usually the part that requires the most performance of them all.
Yeah.
And those are usually like very resistant people in terms of moving, right? Basically, they say like, no, I can't move my data to public cloud because I need a rapid performance of working on these things.
Yeah, and that's tread carefully, because it is so easy to screw everything up simply because of latency. And if you don't think about how to position your data, latency is going to bite you in the posterior. But if you work around this and see it as an opportunity to put things in the cloud, I'm going to do a demo at one of the conferences coming up where I show how to work in real time with 1/4 petabyte data.
Yeah.
Try doing that on-prem. Just imagine the sheer amount of hardware that I need in order to do something like that.
And then what kind of hardware you would have to actually bring up to the stage for that conference, right?
Oh
Or have
dear,
somewhere just like
I would be in such a great shape if I was to
Yeah.
haul that kind of stuff.
Like-
But I'm doing it in the cloud, so I don't
and
need
even
to be
ask
in
the
good shape.
organizers, like, where can I get a power source for this thing, right? It's just like,
So to sum things up, what are the big trends, like the coming year perhaps, in a few words, of the things we have discussed or other things?
Everything is data,
Yep.
and everything is code
Yep. And security.
and
Yeah.
security.
and, and if you want to connect these things properly in between,
Yep.
you should ask yourself the question, why you do that, and later, how do I achieve that?
And how do you learn?
And exactly, how do you learn during the process, and how do you constantly keep evolving those skills?
And laziness is a good driver.
Yeah, that's the best
Absolutely.
one.
It is the best one.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
likewise, thanks.